Ever think about how a bunch of stone walls held off whole armies for years? Medieval castles weren't just big homes, they were battle-ready machines built to beat the odds. Their power wasn't just in how strong they were, it was in how smart they were. And it all started with one question: where to build the castle? Here's what life was really like defending a medieval castle. Hey, quick thing before we start. If you actually listen to these regularly, hit like or subscribe. I always wonder where everyone's at. So comment your city and what time it is. Weird to think some of you are having breakfast in London while I'm recording this at night here in the States. Okay, tonight it's medieval castle defense. But hold on, get comfortable first. I mean it. Fix your pillows, grab that blanket. This one's worth settling in for. Your eyes snap open to darkness. Cold stone beneath your hand, damp air in your lungs. The bell is ringing, not the gentle church bell from the village, the warning bell. You roll off your straw pallet, bare feet hitting stones so cold it nearly burns. Unlike your warm bed right now, there's no plush carpet to welcome your toes, just flagstones worn smooth by generations of guards before you. "Edgar, get up here!" The voice echoes down the spiral staircase. "Captain Rowan, you're late for watch!" You grab your wool tunic, shaking out a spider that's made itself comfortable overnight. The fabric is rough, scratchy against your skin, nothing like your soft sheets at home. You splash water on your face from the small basin by your bed. It's ice cold and smells faintly of minerals from the castle's deep well. "I'm coming!" you shout, fumbling with your belt. Your stomach growls. Breakfast will have to wait. Every morning is the same rush at Castle Dunwell. Late for watch again, but this morning feels different. There's an urgency to the bell that sets your heart racing. You hurry up the spiral staircase, always turning clockwise as you ascend. It's a defensive feature. You know, if enemies ever breached the lower levels, they'd be at a disadvantage climbing up. Their sword arms, usually their right, would be hindered by the central column. Meanwhile, defenders coming down would have the advantage, their right arms free to swing. You think about this every morning. Imagine, even the staircases were designed to kill people. The top of the East Tower greets you with a blast of frigid air that steals your breath. It's dawn, the sky painted in watercolor shades of pink and gold. Beautiful if you weren't so damn cold and tired. "About time," growls Captain Rowan. He's a bear of a man, beard more gray than brown now, face weathered like the castle walls themselves. "Take the glass, southeast approach." He shoves a bronze spyglass into your hands. It's heavy, valuable, worth more than you'd earn in 3 years of service. The metal is cold against your eye as you peer through, focusing on the southern road that winds through the valley below. And there they are, tiny figures in the distance, a lot of them. "How many?" Captain Rowan asks, voice suddenly quiet. You count the banners, estimate the columns of men. 200, maybe more. "Or Lord Blackwell," he confirms. "Been waiting for this. Runner says they've been gathering forces for weeks." The reality of what's happening hits you. They're really going to attack here? But Castle Dunwell has never fallen. Captain Rowan's laugh is dry as autumn leaves. "And that's why they want it, boy. Look at where we stand." You know what he means. Castle Dunwell isn't just any fortress. It was built with defense in mind from the very first stone. "Go on," he says. "Tell me why we're standing here instead of down in the valley. Lord Geoffrey's always saying you're the bright one." You swallow. High ground. Castle sits on the only accessible path up the northern ridge. Attackers have to march uphill for nearly a mile on a narrow path. Exhausts them before they even reach the walls. And he prods. Water to the west, marshland to the east. They can only approach from the south, which means we know exactly where they're coming from. Captain Rowan finishes. 1 direction to defend instead of 4. The old lord who built this place wasn't just lucky, he was smart. You nod. You've lived at Castle Dunwell since you were 12, when Lord Geoffrey took you in after your father died in his service. 6 years of climbing these walls, learning every passageway, every defensive feature. Still, there's a difference between training for an attack and facing one. What now, you ask? Captain Rowan's eyes crinkle at the corners. Now we prepare, and you, Edgar, are about to learn why Castle Dunwell has never fallen. He clasps your shoulder. The next few weeks will be the hardest of your life, but remember, castles like this weren't just built to be big and impressive. They're machines, war machines, everything about them designed to keep people like us alive, and people like them, he nods toward the distant army, dead. The captain turns away, bellowing orders to the other guards now arriving for morning watch. Sound the alarm! Send word to Lord Geoffrey! All villagers inside the walls by midday! Begin inventory of food stores. The castle, sleepy just moments ago, erupts into activity. You take another look through the spyglass. Lord Blackwell's men are setting up camp beyond arrow range. They're not rushing in, they're preparing for a siege. Edgar, Captain Rowan barks, stop gawking and get moving. I need you to check the wall integrity on the south face, every inch. If there's a crack a mouse could slip through, I want to know about it. You're halfway down the stairs when he calls after you. And Edgar, from this moment on, you're not just a castle guard, you're a defender of Dunwell. Remember that. The south wall of Castle Dunwell isn't just a wall, it's a marvel of engineering that stood for over 100 years. 20 feet thick at its base, tapering as it rises nearly 60 feet into the air. You've walked these walls countless times during your training, but today you see them with new eyes. Amazing, isn't it? You turn to find Mason Aldred beside you, running his weathered hand along the stonework. The old mason has been maintaining these walls longer than you've been alive. How does it stand so strong, you ask? Stone upon stone, yet it withstands everything? Mason grins, revealing several gaps where teeth used to be. That's the secret, lad. It's not just stone upon stone. He knocks on the wall. You hear that? Solid stone facing, yes, but inside, he gestures with his hands, rubble fill, smaller stones, broken pieces, all mixed with mortar. When a battering ram hits, he punches his palm. The wall flexes just a bit, absorbs the impact instead of cracking. You run your hand along the cool surface, feeling the history beneath your fingers. And this slope at the bottom, the talus, Mason nods approvingly, makes the wall thicker where it needs to be strongest, forces any impact upward instead of straight in. Also makes siege ladders a nightmare to position. He chuckles. Ever try to stand a ladder against a sloped wall? Slides right off, or sets at such an angle that any poor soul climbing it is practically lying on their back. You've never thought about it that way. A simple slope, yet so effective. Look there, Mason points, where the outer curtain wall meets an inner wall. Concentric design. Even if they breach the outer wall, they're trapped between walls with arrows raining down from both sides. Killing field, we call it. I've heard that before, you admit. Caught between a rock and a hard place. Or literally. Mason laughs, slapping his thigh. I tell you, Edgar, every inch of this castle was built to make attackers miserable and keep us safe. As you continue your inspection, you notice small pebbles embedded in sections of mortar near the base of the wall. What are these for, you ask? Mason's eyes twinkle. Ah, clever that. Early warning system. If enemies try tunneling under the walls, those pebbles shift and make noise. Guards hear it, raise the alarm. No batteries required, just physics. You shake your head in wonder. It's like the whole castle is alive, thinking. That's exactly right, Mason agrees. A living, breathing defense machine. Now, come on, we've got work to do before those bastards down there figure out what they're up against. You spend the morning checking every inch of the southern wall, marking tiny cracks for repair, ensuring drainage. Holes are clear. By midday, the sun beats down mercilessly. Your tunic sticks to your back with sweat. Villagers stream through the main gate below, bringing livestock, food, stores, whatever they can carry. The castle population will swell to 3 times its normal size during the siege. From atop the wall, you can see Lord Blackwell's men constructing siege engines, wooden frames taking shape, teams of oxen hauling massive logs that can only be battering rams. Captain Rowan appears beside you, squinting at the activity below. "Ambitious," he grunts. "They think they'll break through in a week or two." "How long do you think it will take?" you ask. The captain's weathered face splits in a grin. 6 months if they're stubborn. Most likely they'll give up in 3. Meanwhile, our food stores are good for 8 months. Water supply is secure, and, he points to the sky, winter's coming. Nothing like sleeping in mud while snow falls to dampen an army's spirits. He claps you on the shoulder. "Come on, Lord Geoffrey feasts and councils. Today it's transformed into a war room. Lord Geoffrey stands at a massive oak table in the center, surrounded by his most trusted knights and advisors. At 55, he remains imposing, tall and straight-backed, though his beard has gone silver. Maps and parchments cover the table. Carved wooden models represent Castle Dunwell and the surrounding land. Tiny figures mark Lord Blackwell's forces. "Ah, Rowan," Lord Geoffrey nods as you approach. His eyes flick to you and young Edgar. "Good, I wanted him here." Feasts and councils. Today it's transformed into a war room. Lord Geoffrey stands at a massive oak table in the center, surrounded by his most trusted knights and advisors. At 55, he remains imposing, tall and straight-backed, though his beard has gone silver. Maps and parchments cover the table. Carved wooden models represent Castle Dunwell and the surrounding land. Tiny figures mark Lord Blackwell's forces. "Ah, Rowan," Lord Geoffrey nods as you approach. His eyes flick to you and young Edgar. "Good, I wanted him here." Feasts and councils. Today it's transformed into a war room. Lord Geoffrey stands at a massive oak table in the center, surrounded by his most trusted knights and advisors. At 55, he remains imposing, tall and straight-backed, though his beard has gone silver. Maps and parchments cover the table. Carved wooden models represent Castle Dunwell and the surrounding land. Tiny figures mark Lord Blackwell's forces. "Ah, Rowan," Lord Geoffrey nods as you approach. His eyes flick to you and young Edgar. "Good, I wanted him here." Feasts and councils. Today it's transformed into a war room. Lord Geoffrey stands at a massive oak table in the center, surrounded by his most trusted knights and advisors. At 55, he remains imposing, tall and straight-backed, though his beard has gone silver. Maps and parchments cover the table. Carved wooden models represent Castle Dunwell and the surrounding land. Tiny figures mark Lord Blackwell's forces. "Ah, Rowan," Lord Geoffrey nods as you approach. His eyes flick to you and young Edgar. "Good, I wanted him here." Then comes the second portcullis, backed by iron-reinforced oak doors 3 inches thick. Lord Geoffrey nods approvingly. And if they somehow breach all of that, they'd find themselves in the small courtyard between the outer and inner walls, surrounded on 3 sides by archers on the walls, with nowhere to hide. "Just so," Lord Geoffrey agrees. "The gatehouse is a trap, not an entrance, but we must ensure it's properly prepared." He turns to a thin man with a hawkish face. "Master Corin, what do you need?" The gatehouse master steps forward. "We've stockpiled rocks for the murder holes, my lord. I recommend we prepare cauldrons for heating water as well. Sand, too." "Sand?" someone asks. "Gets under armor," Master Corin explains. "Causes terrible burns, and men can't shake it out easily. More effective than oil, which is too valuable to waste anyway." "See to it," Lord Geoffrey commands. "What of the portcullises?" "Both mechanisms have been greased and tested. They drop in under 2 seconds. I've assigned 4 men to each, working in shifts around the clock once the siege begins." The discussion continues, covering every aspect of castle defense. You listen, fascinated, as centuries of defensive wisdom unfold before you. This isn't just a building, it's a complex machine with every component designed for one purpose: survival. As the council concludes, Lord Geoffrey catches your eye. "Edgar, a moment." You approach nervously as the others file out. "Captain Rowan speaks highly of your attention to detail," he says, "and Master Corrin tells me you've taken to gatehouse operations better than most." "Thank you, my lord. I have a special assignment for you. From tomorrow, you'll divide your time between wall duty and training with Master Will." Your heart skips. Master William, the keeper of secrets? Lord Geoffrey's eyes crinkle slightly at your reaction. "Yes, the secret passages. Should Dunwell ever be in danger of falling, which it won't be, certain knowledge must be preserved. You'll be one of the few entrusted with our escape routes." You bow, deeply honored and slightly terrified. "I won't disappoint you, my lord." "See that you don't." He turns back to his maps. "Get some rest, Edgar. Tomorrow we truly begin to teach Lord Blackwell why Dunwell has never fallen." As you leave the great hall, the reality of the situation settles over you. This isn't just an attack, it's a test of everything this castle was built for, and somehow you've become an important part of its defense. The warning bell rings again as dusk approaches. You rush to the eastern wall, joining a crowd of defenders, watching as Lord Blackwell's army completes their encampment. Hundreds of tents spread across the valley floor, campfires beginning to dot the landscape like fallen stars. Quite the sight, isn't it? You turn to find Archer Ellie beside you. At 25, she's the finest shot in Dunwell, capable of hitting targets other archers wouldn't even attempt. "Have you ever seen an army that big?" you ask. "Once," she nods. "5 years ago. They gave up." Uneasy vigilance. Around you, you can't help but feel a strange sense of purpose. All your life you've heard stories about great sieges, about castles that stood against impossible odds. Now you're living inside one of those stories. Your hand trails along the cool stone wall as you walk, 20 feet thick, built to last forever. You hope it lives up to its reputation. Sleep doesn't come easy. The stone floor beneath your pallet seems harder than usual. Every time you close your eyes, you see the army camped in the valley. Axe handles sunk into the ground, the blades gleamed dully in the moonlight, like a tier of iron facing the walls of Dunwell. You change out of yesterday's tunic and follow him through the lower corridors of Dunwell. The castle is already stirring, servants preparing breakfast, guards changing watch. Outside, Lord Blackwell's men will be preparing their first assaults, but in here, life continues with tense normalcy. Will stops before a section of wall that looks identical to every other. "What do you see?" he asks. You study the stones carefully. "Nothing unusual." "Good, that's the point." His fingers press a seemingly random pattern of stones, something both walls, and winds downward in a gentle spiral. The air grows cooler, damper. Somewhere water drips with maddening regularity. "Castle Dunwell has 17 secret passages," Willem explains as you descend. "Most connect different sections of the castle, ways to move troops quickly without exposing them. Some are for storage or access to water sources. 3 are escape routes like this one, you ask. Willem's laugh is dry. "This? No, this is something else entirely." The passage levels out, then opens into a small circular room with a low ceiling. More passages branch off in different directions, like the spokes of a wheel. Willem takes your lamp and uses it to light wall sconces. As light floods the chamber, you gasp. The walls are covered with detailed drawings, maps of Castle Dunwell showing every passage, every room, every defensive feature. Notes in faded ink mark vulnerable points, recommended garrison numbers, estimated supply needs for different sizes of attacking forces. "The War Room," Willem says simply, "created by the First Lord of Dunwell and elaborate along the walls." "How far apart?" You measure with your fingers against the scale. About 200 feet, 180 to be precise. Do you know why? You rack your brain but come up empty. No, sir. The effective range of a longbow, Willem says, tapping the drawing. No matter where attackers approach along the wall, they're always within range of at least 2 towers overlapping fields of fire. Nowhere to hide. He moves to another drawing, this one showing a tower's interior. What about this? What do you see? The drawing shows arrow loops, narrow slits in the tower walls. Arrow loops for defenders to fire through. Look closer. You peer at the detailed drawing. The slits are wider on the inside, narrowing to just a few inches on the exterior. They're splayed inward. Exactly, Willem nods approvingly. Gives archers a wide field of vision and fire, while presenting the smallest possible target to enemies outside. A man 20 feet away can't see if there's an archer ready to fire or not. Meanwhile, the archer can see everything. He leads you to another drawing, this one showing the wall walk atop the curtain walls. Tell me about these battlements, you reply confidently. The up and down pattern along the top of the wall. Proper terms, Willem corrects. The raised sections are merlons, which protect defenders. The gaps are embrasures, which allow them to shoot arrows or throw things down on attackers. You trace the pattern with your finger. So defenders stay behind the merlon, then step forward to the embrasure when attacking. Exactly. Medieval social distancing. Willem's mouth twitches in what might be a smile. Stay behind the stone, shoot through the gaps, don't die. He shows you drawing after drawing, explaining defensive features you've walked past 100 times without truly understanding. The wall walk wide enough for 2 armored men to pass without risk of falling. The different weapons platforms, positions for longbowmen to fire at distant targets, stations for crossbowmen to handle closer threats. What's this, you ask, pointing to a drawing of a large crossbow-like device mounted on a tower. Springold, Willem says, huge dart launcher, powerful enough to punch through shields and skewer multiple men at once. We have those? You've never seen such weapons on Dunwell's towers. Hidden until needed. Lord Geoffrey doesn't advertise all our capabilities. Willem rolls his shoulders. Nothing brings enemies together quite like being pinned by the same giant dart. You laugh despite yourself. Willem continues the lesson, showing you how Dunwell's every feature serves a defensive purpose. Even the spiral staircases turn clockwise as they ascend, a detail you noticed yesterday. Gives defenders coming down the advantage, you say. Their right arms swing freely, while attackers coming up have their sword arms hindered by the central column. Willem raises an eyebrow. You're not entirely hopeless. From the war room, Willem leads you through another passage. This one climbs steadily upward, occasionally branching into side tunnels that Willem explains connect to different parts of the castle. If the lower levels are breached, he says, defenders can retreat upward while still being able to move between sections without exposing themselves. The passage eventually emerges behind a tapestry in a small room in the eastern tower. Dawnlight filters through the arrow loops, casting thin beams across the stone floor. This is where we begin your real training, Willem says. Today, you learn how towers defend Castle Dunwell. Outside, the warning bell sounds. You move to the arrow loop, peering over the valley. Lord Blackwell's men are on the move, dragging the wooden frames of siege towers toward the castle. Perfect timing, Willem says, joining you at the narrow window. They're starting with siege towers, ambitious but predictable. Will they work? You ask, watching the massive structures inch closer. Willem scoffs. Against some castles, perhaps, not Dunwell. He points to the towers positioned along the walls. Watch and learn how castle towers were designed as the ultimate defensive weapon. Throughout the morning, Willem takes you on a tour of Dunwell's towers. Unlike the simple guard towers you're familiar with, each is a sophisticated battle station. The largest, the Tour de Constance, on the southeast corner, features a special chamber with a massive fire pit. Signal fire, Willem explains, visible from 20 miles away. When lit, nearby Allied castles know we're under attack. You look out from the tower's heights, understanding dawning. It's not just about defending this castle, is it? It's a network. Now you're thinking properly, Willem nods. One castle is a fortress. Multiple castles supporting each other is a defensive system. From here, we can alert 3 other strongholds within hours. He shows you the platforms built inside each tower, fighting positions arranged on multiple levels, each with arrow loops covering different approaches. The interior is designed so defenders can quickly move up or down, repositioning as needed. Look at this, Willem points to an arrow loop that appears different from the others. You peer through to see it offers a view directly along the wall. This one doesn't face outward, you observe. On enfilade position, Willem explains, allows archers to fire along the length of the wall. If attackers manage to reach the wall with scaling ladders, they'll be shot from both in front and from the side. Try dodging arrows from multiple directions while climbing a ladder. Like a very unfair game, you mutter. Exactly. Willem's eyes gleam. Blowed Blackwell, you say? Willem merely nods. Captain Rowan will handle the initial defense. We have other matters to attend to. He leads you to the northern tower, the tallest in Dunwell. Unlike the others, this one contains a strange mechanism at its top, a large drum with a handle attached to thick chains that disappear into the floor. What's this, you ask? Another secret, Willem says, one that's kept Dunwell safe through 12 sieges. Before he can explain, the warning horn sounds from the south wall. 3 sharp blasts. Enter effective range. Hold, he commands. Let them come closer. The massive siege tower inches forward, pushed by sweating men as arrows continue to fly overhead. Now, Rowan bellows, when the enemy reaches his predetermined mark. Dunwell's archers rise as one from behind the Merlin, loosing a devastating volley into the exposed men pushing the tower. Dozens fall, but others quickly take their places, pushing the tower ever closer to the wall. Second rank ready, Rowan shouts. Fire! Another volley darkens the sky. More attackers fall. Still, the tower advances. They're persistent, you mutter. Watch, Willem says calmly. As the tower comes within 50 yards of the wall, a new sound reaches your ears, the cranking of mechanisms from the nearest tower. You watch, fascinated, as a massive spring is wheeled into position on the tower platform. 3 men operate the weapon, cranking it to full tension, then loading a massive iron-tipped dart into its track. Fire, comes the command. The springold releases with a deep twang. The plank poised to drop onto the wall walk. Ready, Rowan calls to the defenders gathered around him, swords and axes in hand. The gangplank crashes down. For a moment, nothing happens. Then armored men begin pouring from the siege tower onto Dunwell's wall walk. The clash of steel fills the air as defenders meet attackers head on. You draw your sword, ready to join the fray, but Willem holds you back. Wait, he says. Watch how a castle defends itself. From your position, you see what the attackers don't. Men emerging from the tumble-down. The structure teeters for one breathless moment, then crashes to the ground in a splintering of wood and screams. On the wall, the attackers already engaged suddenly realize they're cut off. The fight is brief and brutal. And that, Willem says, as the last attacker falls, is why siege towers rarely work against a properly defended castle. You stare at the wreckage below, where survivors crawl from the shattered remains of the tower. They'll try again. Of course they will, Willem agrees. But in some strange way, the walls now protect the men. Willem leads you to the eastern section of the castle, to a part you've rarely visited. A narrow staircase descends into darkness. Where are we going now, you ask? To see Dunwell's most important defense, Willem replies cryptically, the one that makes all